go. Hello, hello. This is me. This is Electronic Literature, and I am the Professor Zach Wayland. So I'm just getting started here today. If you're watching, hopefully you're in the class, but if you're not in the class, you're welcome to watch. And hopefully if you are in the class, you're watching. So whatever. Hopefully there's some people watching. It looks like I've got a few according to the Twitch metrics. Let me turn down the music here. Hope you enjoyed that music. That's Chip Zell. She's a chiptunes artist who I've been enjoying a lot recently, so thought I'd play some of her music to kind of set the tone for today. So hopefully you can see me and hear me okay. Hopefully things are working on your end. If not, please let me know. If I need to be louder or if I need to adjust different things, please let me know. As you can see, there's chat appearing here. But I can't actually see it. It's too small for me to read right now. But yeah, good. Yeah, many of you are saying hi and good morning, which is great. As you can see, these messages appear above me in the live stream. That's how I have it set up right now. I might rearrange things for later streams, but for now, if you leave a message in the live stream chat channel, then it will appear right here above me on the stream, and it's going to be embedded in the video, obviously, that will be posted on Twitch and then on YouTube. So bear that in mind if you want to post anything there, that your name will appear there. So if you'd rather your name not appear on the streams, then switch your Discord name to a nickname, something that's not actually your real name. So anyway, good morning. Hope you're all doing well. Wow, I got 23 viewers. Nice. There's actually 20 people in the class, so maybe that means there's some extra viewers. But that's okay. Certainly welcome, whoever's there. Or maybe some of you in Section 2 are watching the Section 1 stream. That's totally fine too. There are two sections of this class, and this is, I'm just getting started with Section 1, which starts at 10:10. And as you can see, I'm using Twitch as opposed to Zoom. I can talk a little bit about kind of why I chose that, if you're interested. All right, so okay, yeah, and I see. You can also chat on the Twitch channel if you want. And I have that up in a different computer, so I just see here. Colin, you're welcome to watch, even if you're not in the class. So that's totally fine. Okay, so I want to welcome you to the Spring 21 semester. I don't know if this is your first class of the day, but it certainly is mine. And jumping right into things. I do hope to have a chance to get to know many of you as much as I can this semester. I know some of you will be completing things totally remotely, but hopefully we will be able to meet with each other in person sometime starting next week. But we'll talk about that and try to figure out the best options and arrangements for that for this course. But today I thought I would just do a live stream like this because it's really just going to be me explaining things, and I'm the only one who kind of really needs to talk for that. But certainly if you have questions about anything that I talk about here, you can post them in the chat or on the Twitch chat or on the Discord chat. So that's the basic plan for today is for me to tell you some things about this class. As you can see, I've got a slideshow here, and I'm going to work through some slides, which is not really a lecture. This is just more or less to remind me of the things that I want to make sure to remember to talk about. Actually, among those things that I want to talk about is the Canvas course, which is open now. So please take a look at that. Switch over to student view. There's very little available here within this Canvas course. There is a lot here, but it's not published because I need to adjust due dates and tweak descriptions and do a lot of little cleanup kind of stuff like that. So not much to see, but you can see the syllabus, and I do want to spend a little time today talking about the syllabus and kind of working through that. There's not really anything unusual about the syllabus, but it's at least I don't think there is, but it's one of many ways you can start to get an impression of what this class is really going to be about and what it's going to be like, and that's kind of the point of this first day. So y'all doing okay out there? Everybody hear me okay? Everything good? I mean, I see many of you said hello and in the channel. Many of you were online last night introducing yourselves, which is cool. So yeah, thanks for doing that. Cool. All right, great. Good morning. Thanks, Amber. A couple of notes, I guess. I'm not going to put Discord on the screen, but I did want to just say a couple of things about it. I don't want to put it on the screen because it might have your actual name in it, and maybe you don't want to reveal that on the thing here. But Discord is, I've been using it for a while now, and I really like it for classes. So I know many of you have had experience with Discord because you've been in my classes before, but for those of you who might be new to my classes or to Discord, Discord is it's a chat space, and I mostly use it for text chat, but you can also do voice and video chat within Discord, so it's really convenient for that. So it's also a place to share content, to share media, to have different kinds of conversations. We're going to use it a lot this semester. So if you are new to Discord and you have questions about how to use it, just feel free to ask. Just bear in mind, you can change your nickname on different servers. So if you have a Discord name that you're used to using elsewhere, and you want to use a different name, like your actual name for our class server, that's totally fine. Or if you'd rather keep that screen name, that's totally fine. Just kind of pay attention to that and kind of think about how you want to be represented in the class. In terms of the organization, I've got an announcements channel that's set so only I can post in it. Otherwise, you can post in pretty much any other channel, I think. I'll probably do the archives. I have an archives channel. I'll probably just set it so only I can post in that, or maybe a bot. I might have a bot that'll just post every time I upload one of these class videos to YouTube. Some of the other channels will have special purposes, but mostly you can tell what they're for by looking at the name of the channel, like the memes channel, share a meme, right? Pet pictures, do you have a pet? Share a picture. Most of those are going to be pretty intuitive, I think, but sometimes there'll be specific use channels for different things. So that's we'll figure it out as we go too. I think it's going to evolve probably as the semester proceeds. I am using Twitch, as you can see, instead of Zoom, and I thought I'd mention that a little bit, maybe a little bit later. I'll talk about kind of why I'm choosing to use Twitch, but it is a deliberate choice. Oh yeah, thanks, Colin. Good reminder. I will do that. Colin on the Twitch chat just reminded me to add a resources channel because we found that useful in our winter class that we just wrapped up, or are still sort of technically wrapping up. I don't know. Did you I taught a winter class, games and culture. Were any of you in that class? I'm trying to see if anyone carried over. I don't think so. At least if I'm looking through it, I don't think anyone carried it over from that class to this class. But man, the winter class was intense and pretty exhausting, and it's not done yet. And I'm still finishing grading. I have to finish that tonight. But wow, okay, definitely an unusual experience, and I think it went okay. I hope it went okay. Yeah, indeed, the resources channel was very useful for that. Okay, so let me actually get into some things here. This is my these are my slides, and these are my basically notes for myself to remember the things I wanted to talk about on the first day of electronic literature, section 1, getting started at 10:10. This class, by the way, is the first section of 2, so I'm going to basically do the same thing again at 11:20. So this section, I think, is scheduled to go to 11, so we'll wrap up around then, if not sooner. I don't know if I'm going to have that much to say, but certainly I'll keep it going as long as I need to answer any questions that may come up as we get into it. So this is the schedule. The goals for today, basically, I want to introduce myself, introduce the concept of electronic literature, walk through the syllabus a little bit, and then talk about some plans for this week and then every week later, the weeks going forward, because that might be a little unusual. This is a class that's scheduled as hybrid synchronous, so I want to talk about what that means, or what that could mean for us. That could mean different things, it turns out, but I have some thoughts to share about that, and I will be sending a survey later today. I'll try to get it done between the two sections, but I'll send you all a survey to give your feedback on what your availability is as far as in-person class, and that will help me determine how to schedule those. But I'll say more about that later. Okay, so who am I? I am Dr. Wayland. Zach Wayland is my name. I'm an associate professor at the University of Mary Washington, and I teach in the Department of Communication and Digital Studies. I used to be in the Department of English, Linguistics, and Communication, but that department split off into two, and so now I went with the CDS half of that department. Not really half, but the CDS group of that department. But I still teach classes in English like this one. So this is an English class, and I basically split my teaching 50-50 between the departments, but all of my classes are essentially digital studies classes. It's just that some are specifically digital studies, like DGST 101, DGST 301, 395, and others are English classes that count as digital studies electives, either for the major or the digital studies minor, which I'm the director of. I'm also currently the unofficial chair, or nominal chair, I guess, of the Digital Intensive Committee that reviews that as part of the new general education requirement. So this class, English 350, does quite a few things. So it's an elective for CDS, an elective for the Digital Studies minor. It can be an elective for your English major or English creative writing major. It's also a digital intensive course. So it's all of those things, possibly more, but it does quite a few things. And you might be here for any number of those or any combination of those. And that's great. So a few more things, I guess, about me. I'm married. I have 4 kids, and they are doing their schooling in the room that's kind of next to me. So I've got the door closed, but sometimes their sounds may bleed over. You may hear them sometimes, or if they're running around upstairs, they tend to spend time in the room directly above me. It can be very loud, so I apologize in advance for that. But if you hear like thumping or anything, that's what's going on. I also have a bird feeder set up just outside of the window where I am, and I have not figured out how to get birds to visit it yet. So, I mean, I've had a couple, but I've got a webcam actually pointing at the bird feeder, but very rarely do I see a bird, and very rarely have I been able to capture it. I'm working on it. I have the camera like fed into OBS so I can send it through Twitch whenever a bird does show up, but it just doesn't happen. I don't know why. So we'll see. If you have any advice about how to get like irresistible bird seed or something, let me know. It could just be like, I have multiple bird feeders in the yard, so maybe they're just like fine with those other ones and they don't feel like coming to visit this one because they don't need to. Anyway, this is me. I don't know what else you want to know about me. Anything else? What else do you want to know about me? Anything else? Okay, well, let's move on. What is electronic literature? And this is going to be, actually want to spend a little bit of time with this because this is the term that we're using for this class, and you're probably wondering what that is. And so that's something that I hope I can explain. So a couple of things that it is not. Well, it is not usually ebooks. So when we talk about electronic literature, I'm not talking about, well, let me show you an example of what is not electronic literature usually. So I have to unlock this here. So electronic literature is, when I talk about electronic literature, I'm not usually talking about this. I'm not usually talking about an ebook, like a Kindle. This is a Kindle or like a Samsung e-reader. That's usually not what we're talking about when we talk about electronic literature. It's not literature that happens to be accessed on a computer or on an e-device like this. Instead, we're talking about literature that has been born digital. So that means literature that can only exist because of computers, and that, that's it. That it can only exist because of computers, and it uses the capabilities of the computer to do things that print literature cannot do by itself. Now, sometimes you might encounter electronic literature on this kind of device, and also you can look at, and I have examples of electronic literature that are printed. So really, the born digital is kind of an awkward term, but I think it hopefully makes sense. These are things that need computation to exist and are relying on the unique things that computation can do. So that's maybe how we're doing that. So I will show you some examples, but that's the basic idea, right? So let's see. Another term that might be useful to kind of think of as a synonym here is digital literature. And if we're thinking descriptively, I think digital literature basically is synonymous with electronic literature. It's just that electronic literature has become a term of art, which means that it's not just literally describing what we do, because of course, there's all kinds of things that are electronic, and we don't really think about electronics anymore. We think about digital technology instead of electronic technology. But it just became a term of art that people that talk about this thing started using and kept using. And so when we refer to this kind of thing as electronic literature, we're referencing that term that's used within this community of scholars and practitioners that create this kind of thing and study this kind of thing. So it's got some, cultural context for it, in the sense that there's a community of people using the term electronic literature. But if you use the term digital literature, you're still talking about the same thing. People still know what you're talking about, and that's fine. Okay, so here's some examples of different types, or you could say genres, of electronic literature. I think genre is kind of a tricky word, but these are different things that count as electronic literature usually. So we're talking about hypertext fiction, video games, certain kinds of video games, maybe not every video game, but certainly there are video games that I would consider electronic literature, interactive fiction, text adventures, digital poetry, computer-generated text, networked improvisational literature, combinatorics, kinetic poetry, hypermedia, etc. The list goes on, but these are some of the things that just off the top of my head that I thought of as examples that illustrate what computers are capable of that can explore literary ideas and aesthetics and sensibilities. So let's look at some examples. We're going to be using this book for the class, by the way. This is Electronic Literature. It's the title of the book by Scott Rutberg, and it's meant to be a textbook. It's meant to be an introductory textbook to the field of electronic literature, so that's why we're using it. You should get a copy. Hopefully it's in the bookstore. I don't know. I haven't checked, but I believe it should be in the bookstore. But the library may even have a copy of it, a digital copy of this book. I'll check later. But the point is, this will be our book, and he works through different forms, and he kind of uses the same kind of terminology that I'm using here to break down different forms of electronic literature, and then the book is organized around exploring those different forms. So that's what we're going to be spending mostly the first half of the semester doing, is looking at these different forms in some detail, trying to understand their origins and their tropes and kind of how to do them. And then the second part of the semester will focus more on making your own electronic literature. So it'll be kind of history and culture in the first half, and then actually doing it in the second half, more or less, right? I mean, not exactly evenly divided, but that's the general movement of the semester. All right, so let's talk about some examples. So this is an example of what's called hypertext fiction. So hypertext is the basic technology that defines the web. So whenever you click a link, you're using hypertext. For example, if you're looking at, let's see, this announcement on, why can't I click on this? There it is. If you're looking at this announcement from the Canvas course, there's a link here that is a link to the syllabus. That's a hyperlink. It's using the A tag with an href element to make a link to this other bit of content here on this web page that we call a Canvas course. And here's a specific piece of content. So you're familiar with hypertext, even if you don't know that term. You've used it today. It's just something that it defines the web, and really most apps. I mean, it's really all about clicking and doing buttons and things like that's hypertext, right? When we use that technology to try to create literature, then we can call it something else like hypertext fiction. And if you're writing fiction that incorporates hypertext, I think that makes sense. So here's an example. Maybe not the best example, but a somewhat classic example that is accessible on the web, and so it's relatively convenient to show you this one. This is really a novella, I would say, by Michael Joyce called 12 Blue, and I hope you can see it. The colors, it's blue on blue, so it's kind of hard to see, but hopefully you can see the numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I can click on those, and I can also click on different points in this image that looks like string and different kind of streams crossing each other. So if I just click on one of these essentially at random, you'll see that this is text. It's blue on blue, and then some of the text here is underlined, which means it's a link, and I can click on that. The way this one is programmed, if I click on that link and it's visited, then the link becomes the same color. The link text becomes the same color as the background, so it effectively disappears. But you explore this work by clicking on links, and I just actually, there is one dead end, and I just hit it in this work. But usually you explore for a while before you hit a dead end. But yeah, you read it and you try to understand what's going on with these different characters. As a writer, Michael Joyce has created this in such a way that you can really explore it, and whatever order you explore it in, it kind of makes sense. But he's writing in a rather poetic way as opposed to a linear kind of plot-based way, so that's why it still works no matter what order you read it in. Other hypertext works can be more linear, and that's fine. Those are choices that different writers can make. But this is hypertext fiction. It's fiction because it's written it's a fictional narrative, and it's using hypertext. So that's the basic definition of hypertext fiction. That's what we're talking about. We'll definitely spend some time with hypertext fiction. As far as kind of the history, if you're looking at the long history of electronic literature, hypertext fiction really dominated what we now call the first generation of the first generation of electronic literature. Hypertext was kind of the big thing at that point. We're talking late 80s, early 90s, even into the early 2000s. So this is something that there's a lot of examples of it. Much of it is hard to access, or you have to use special software to find it and access it, but I'll take you through that. But the nice thing about 12 Blue is that it's on the web. Some of you may be familiar with the platform called Twine, and when people make hypertext fiction today, most of the time they're using Twine. So that's something that I can show you how to do later. But Twine is nice because it produces accessible HTML works. Certainly video games can be electronic literature, and If we're thinking about games that might be literary, I think Edith Finch, What Remains of Edith Finch is a good example. I don't know if you're familiar with this game. I'm not expecting you to be necessarily, but it's a game where, now I haven't actually finished it, I should say, but I have started playing it and I'm really enjoying it. It's a game where you explore a house and discover things about it, and there seems to be like a lurking, like a tragedy basically, and you're trying to understand the origins of that. And there is gameplay. There are interesting mechanics in some of the levels. That essentially you explore different rooms in the house, and then as you explore a room, you kind of play as a particular person, and you kind of understand their ideas. But it's full of text. Text pops up on the world, but more so, I would say this is something I would consider literary, because what we do with this is not so much like, it's not like you're defeating the monster or killing the aliens or surviving or whatever, or like, I don't know, like getting the most points or something like that. Those are kind of traditional game mechanics, but in a game like Edith Finch or like Gone Home is another example. What you're doing is you're trying to understand what's going on and interpret it, and understanding and interpretation are the things that you do with literature. And so I think that's why this is something that should be classified as electronic literature. And it's also just really beautifully designed and created. Just the artwork is really nice. So I'm really liking it. I'm not very far into it yet, but I've been enjoying it when I've had a chance to play, which is not often, unfortunately. But I did have a chance a little bit with my games and culture class, which is what I just wrapped up. And we were playing, spent some time playing interesting games like this, and this was the game I chose to play for a little bit. That Dragon Cancer, I am aware of that story. So Curry on the Twitch, on Discord, just asked about the game called That Dragon Cancer. Yes, and it definitely could count as electronic literature. So it being, multilinearity or interactivity, these are not necessary components. I think, so That Dragon Cancer, I just knowing what it's about, I can't bring myself to play it. It's too much for me emotionally. So I'm aware of it, and I'm aware that it's a really powerful story. So yeah, definitely I think that counts as, or could be considered electronic literature. Really though, as far as like counting or not counting, it kind of doesn't matter. I mean, it's if it's something that you respond to aesthetically or emotionally, like that's great. It doesn't always matter what we call it. But I do agree that would be a good example of electronic literature in the video game form, based on what I know of the game. Have you played it? Because man, it's rough. I mean, it's heartbreaking, I guess is another word for it. Yeah. Need more coffee. Maybe tea, because I've had a lot of coffee and I'm like, wow. Yeah, and I mean, that's something being challenging emotionally but worthwhile. I think that's another, I think, characteristic of a lot of literature, that we kind of experience it that way. It's definitely an example of, we're not playing to have fun, right? It's not a game that we can think of as fun, but we would think of it as a meaningful experience. And that's a thing that we expect from literature. Like literature, books can be fun to read, but we usually think of literature as existing for other purposes besides fun. And that's something that basically, when games are interesting but not fun, that might be another way to think about them. Well, let me talk about a couple more. So interactive fiction, and there's basically two subclasses of interactive fiction. Let me just show you one of them because it's easy to access here. Actually, let me make sure I turn my sound off. This uses Twine, and Twine can be used for hypertext fiction, but certain creators, like this is Porpentine is the creator of this work. Many of her works are much more game-like, so you kind of make choices, and then you have goals you're trying to accomplish by making the right choices, and that's why you might call it interactive fiction as opposed to hypertext fiction. It's a semantic difference. It's a gradient. Like there's not a huge difference between these two, yeah. So let's go ahead and get into this so I can show you what I mean. There is sound, but I muted it, so hopefully you aren't hearing it. It's kind of stressful sounding. So what month were we born in? Let's go with 5, the angel's egg. What is your elements? Let's go with machine. What color are your eyes? Blue, sure. And when you come of age, your parents used this information to give you a name, running their fingers along the indexes of a book as by custom. Mia Perovir, and 10 years disappeared. So this is a game where you have things you're trying to accomplish, and so I think calling it a game makes sense. Also, Porpentine calls this a game. Like, this is listed on her website among her games, and this is one that is well known and anthologized in different ways. It's a really challenging work, I guess, aesthetically. I mean, it's difficult in the sense that, like, figuring everything out is a challenge just operationally, but it's also just like, what the heck is going on here? Like, it's really violent. It's really kind of gross sometimes, but that's, those are the things that she's doing as a writer to on purpose. Right, so it's interesting to think about. Again, it's not necessarily fun, but it's something that's a meaningful experience, or it can be. Okay, so that's a good example. The other kind, let me just show you a quick example of this other kind. There's a great database of interactive fiction, the Interactive Fiction Database, tads.org, and you can find many works here. You have to kind of look for good ones sometimes because it includes, like, there's very little curating in terms of, like, good interactive fiction. It's like everything's here. But this is another example of a different style of interactive fiction, and this style you actually have to type. So this is sort of an unusual one, but you can see the idea of it. There's a description of a scene. Just to summarize, you're riding in a car. You're in the passenger seat, and you can do different things. You type commands to yourself, basically, as you're playing the game. And in this case, I tried to turn on the radio, but Rob is driving and he's not letting me do anything here. Let me look at Rob. So here's a description of Rob. But basically, you crash your car and then things happen differently from there. But the point is, like, in terms of what you do as you interact with this, you're not clicking links, you're actually typing commands. And this can be a more difficult kind of interactive fiction to get used to. Sometimes these are called text adventures when they're more game-like, but this one is more fiction-like. This is a work called Photopia, and very much a work of fiction, very much a short story, essentially. But it's one where you have to figure things out and solve certain problems in order to proceed. But basically, the basic thing you have to do to figure out to do this is figuring out what to type and kind of how to work with the interface for it. Okay, so let me close a couple things. Don't need that anymore. Cool. So other examples, digital poetry. So this is a work called Whalefall. And it's an example of digital poetry. Digital poetry can include lots of different poetics. This particular one includes kinetics in the sense that it fades in and out. It's also a work built around constraint. So this is published in a journal called Taper, and Taper is cool because, let me show you Taper. Taper is a digital poetry journal, or online literary magazine, as they say here, and they publish small computational pieces, but most of these are, I would consider, poetic. And there's always a constraint. So in terms of writing the code for these things, the constraint is usually you have to write it under a certain memory size. And it becomes very challenging. So I've written a couple and gotten them published here with this. But it's really challenging. First of all, coming up with an idea, but then getting it to work and then compressing your code down to 2 kilobytes, in this case for this issue, was really challenging. But anyway, I really like Whalefall. This one, kind of words pop in and out, and then these arrows here kind of prompt you to scroll down, and then as you scroll down, different words kind of appear and disappear. It gets darker and darker and darker. And as a poem, it has some elements of, like, concrete poetry where the way things appear matters. It has some elements of kinetic poetry because things are kind of moving, or at least I'm moving them, so there's a bit of interactivity there. But it definitely depends on the electronic environment, the digital environment, for how it accomplishes those things. So this is definitely a digital poem. And the word alive, I grew by the sea, sand in all my crevices, right? And it goes down. It's a really kind of haunting piece, and I kind of don't want to spoil it for you. Kind of want you to experience it on your own. And that's the thing with a lot of electronic literature. It's often experiential or interactive, and so different people will have different experiences with it, and I really want to encourage you to have your own experiences with these things. So I sometimes will do walkthroughs on live streams, but I think for the most part, I want you all to experience things yourself. But as an example of digital poetry, other examples, like, let me show you a couple more examples of digital poetry. Digital poetry can be published. This is a book called Travesty Generator by Liliana von Bertram. One of, I think, one of my favorite poetry books to come out last year. not that I read a lot of poetry books, honestly, but I really like this one a lot. I wrote a lengthy review of it. Nick Montfort is someone who writes a lot of these things. This is a book of his digital poetry. This is an interesting work. This is a computer-generated novel, and I have 2 copies of it because the way that this novel is written, it's coded, programmed by Aaron Reed, so that every time you order a copy of it, it is generated in a way that's unique. So no 2 copies are alike, and so that's why you're encouraged to buy 2 copies so you can compare them. And it's really interesting because it's not just sort of randomly sliding different phrases in and out. There is an internal logic, so an actual procedural logic to each issue, like each version of the book that you can get. So it's pretty interesting to compare. And the way that when you buy 2 of them, what it does, the code is designed so that it produces, like it picks a random seed, like it picks a random novel to create, and then it calculates the most different novel from that seed that it can, and then it gives you that as the pair. So I've got 2 pretty different books here, but they tell kind of the same story, but the interpretation of that story is very different in terms of what you read. Pretty interesting, certainly interesting. I wonder if it has the same blurbs on the back. Yeah, it looks like it. Okay. I don't know if yeah, those are things that you can't take for granted whenever you're talking about computer-generated literature. Okay, so what is this class going to be like? First of all, I'm using Twitch, as you can see. I find Twitch really convenient. I can do different things. I can show you different things pretty easily with this. In terms of bandwidth, it seems better than Zoom. One big difference, of course, is that I'm the only one sending video through this, so you all are just watching my video. It's not us trying to talk to each other, and I think that saves the bandwidth as well. You can watch this at whatever resolution you need to, depending on your bandwidth and your internet access or whatever you need. So hopefully it's working. Hopefully you have that works there for that. Twitch is, it's owned by Amazon. It's a, commercial product, and Twitch as a community, has a lot of really annoying and toxic components to it, I think. But also, I think there's a lot of other people using it for educational reasons, and it has a lot of good things as well. So I like using it. I hope you all like using it as well. Seems to be working. I've been using it for the past couple semesters since we started doing everything online last spring. Seems to have gone okay, so I'm continuing to use Twitch. All the videos are archived on Twitch, but they are deleted after 2 weeks. So what I do is I download them from Twitch and then upload them to YouTube, so you can access them there if you need to. I'll set up a channel or a playlist on YouTube for this class, and you'll be able to see things there. So that's the idea. For that. Why Discord? I like Discord because all of the opportunities it provides for conversations, including text conversations and voice conversations if you like, and video. Also lets you share media really well, like GIFs and images. Like you can put those in there and really have that kind of space. I think it's especially important for a class that is online, or like ours is like half online, to have a sense of online place. I think is really useful to build a sense of community. Of course we have Canvas, but Canvas is like information, but Discord is more of a space for us to be a community. So that's why I really like it. Have fun with it. Right? It can be pretty informal. Sometimes I will direct specific things to do or conversations to have in Discord, but not always. So certainly things like the memes channel, do whatever you want there. Okay, so what's going to happen this week and what's going to happen next week? So here's my plan for this week. Obviously, I'm live streaming right now. I want to live stream again on Friday. On Wednesday, I'm hoping we can do a Zoom conference. And even though I just said I don't like Zoom that much, or there are reasons I don't like it, I think it will be useful now and maybe a couple more times to have a Zoom conference with everybody in the class so we can all see each other and put names with faces. I don't know many of you, so I do know some, but I don't know all. So this will be helpful for me, for any of you, especially if you are going to be taking this class and remaining fully virtual the whole time. If I don't already know you, then it would be useful for me to kind of see what you look like and hear what you sound like, and just kind of a chance for you to ask questions and kind of figure things out. So let's plan on doing that on Wednesday. It'll be at 10:10. I'll set it up in Canvas, so you'll get an invitation link in Canvas, and we'll do that for Wednesday. Friday we'll be back on the live stream, and to be a lecture kind of thing probably. Then going ahead, what we do once we're allowed to be in person depends, and I'm going to send a survey to you all to find out what your plans are. I plan to live stream on Monday at least, but my hope is that we can do some in-person things, in-person classes. That said, I also want to make sure that those of you who will not be able to join us in person, that you have something to do as well. And so I have to figure out how to balance that out. I think, so some of you were in my 395 class in the spring. I think in some cases, I didn't quite get that balance right. And so I'm looking at I want to see how many of you will plan to be there in an in-person experience and how many of you definitely won't be or can't be, so I can decide like how many in-person days to even have. This class is scheduled to meet in HCC 329, not 327. So I have to check what the cap is on the number of people that can be in 329. I want to say it's 10, but it might be 12. It might be 9, actually, come to think of it. But I want to figure out what that is, and then that will determine how many of us can meet in person, and then that will determine how often we will meet as that group. But it will probably be no more than once a week for you. It might be twice a week for me if I have enough to make 2 separate groups, if that makes sense. But there will definitely be at least one day a week that is fully online for everyone, and that's the plan. So kind of figuring out which day that is and how many other days there are, it's going to depend on what you tell me in those surveys. So I'll send you the survey by tonight just to get that. So please check that. But at least for Wednesday this week, it'll be a Zoom conference on Wednesday and then another live stream on Friday. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions about this, put it in Discord. I'm mindful of time. I want to try to wrap this up by 11, so just a few more things here to talk about. In fact, is this my last slide? I think, yeah, this is my last slide. So homework, I would like for you to read the syllabus, and I will kind of talk through it here in a moment. There will be a survey that I'm going to send out later, so please complete that once you see that. And then finally, just introduce yourself in Discord in the introductions channel if you haven't already. So let's take a look at the syllabus. All right, so much of this is still coming together, like the Canvas course, but the information here should be correct, I think, in the syllabus. Now I will, as I'm looking at it, I might see something I need to adjust, but I hopefully not. So yeah, so let me kind of go through it. I'm not going to read the entire syllabus to you, but I do want to highlight and explain a few things. Our goals for this class is I want you to understand the history of electronic literature and also the contemporary state of the art of electronic literature. So where did it come from, and then who's doing it now? What is that community? What is that space like? One of the interesting things about electronic literature I find is that there is actually a pretty specific community, like a group of people, and I consider myself a member of that group, and we talk to each other, we share work with each other, we write papers about each other's work. It's a large group. It's a few hundred people. But if you look at just the basic definition of what electronic literature is, digital literature, it's people doing interesting things with computers. And there's thousands and thousands of people in the world doing these kinds of things that our group may not know about and they may not know about us. And so it's often really exciting to find like pockets of people doing interesting things like that. Like I found an interesting digital poetry journal that I'd never heard of before, and I've forgotten the title of it, but it's all code poetry, and nobody that I have ever heard of, and they're not talking to anyone that I'm in the group with. So it's always this interesting act of discovery, basically. Anyway, I also want you to gain some experience using digital tools. I'll show you how to use different tools that you can use to create electronic literature, and then that's one of your projects is going to be to create a work. So I'll talk about different options for that later, but that's a skill that I hope you develop here. But also, we are going to be analyzing things, and one of the things that you'll have to learn with electronic literature is that you can often use a lot of the same critical skills that you would use to analyze traditional literature, but you do also have to use new skills and understand different things about these works as you try to study them. This is probably a good point to mention something else that will come to define your experience perhaps with electronic literature, or not define, but can be an issue with electronic literature, is that much of this work is recent, meaning that much of it is, in terms of its style and poetics, somewhat avant-garde or experimental, which is to say that some of it can be challenging, not necessarily in the sense of how do you play it, but challenging in the sense of how do I make sense of this? What actually is this? And that's going to be something that you have to be patient with, and that I can help you with, but you're going to need to have an open mind with many of these works, I'll just say. Some of them will be challenging, possibly Yeah, I'm not going to give you anything that's meant to be offensive, but certainly some things will have some mature themes and could be kind of disturbing even. So these are things that we'll talk about, and I will always try to give you a heads up about before we play anything that might be considered offensive or disturbing. But just again, keep an open mind. This is a class that many students do find difficult in terms of the material. So just like getting into it, making sense of it. So that's just a heads up. A few years ago when I taught this class, I had students at the end of the semester write kind of like tips, like a guide, like tips and tricks for the next iteration of this class. And so I still use that list. I'll pull it up and share it with you all on the Zoom conference on Wednesday. But it's basically things like the advice that those students have left for you includes things like, keep an open mind, be patient, things like that. So anyway, you'll see what I mean. Okay, in terms of the actual structure of the class, I will say, a more structured class than many of my others because I think there is a lot of content I want to make sure that you are aware of and that you're working with in a competent way. And so I am going to give you some quizzes. These will be about every 2 weeks, about 6 of them total. And they'll all be in Canvas, and they'll all be essentially open book or open note kind of quizzes. They'll be timed, I guess, but it'll probably be open for I don't know, I haven't really thought about how to do this exactly, but I'll probably just open them for like 24 hours or 48 hours or something like that, so you have time to work on it. But these will be ways that you're demonstrating that you understand the concepts and the terminology, especially. The terminology can be kind of tricky, so that's one of the main things that these quizzes are going to ask you to tell me about and make sure you're getting it correct. The specific projects, I may change these a little bit actually, but definitely a creative project. The 3rd gen project is the one that's a little bit flexible. I may be flexing that. And then the final project, which is kind of your own design, but it can be building off of either of the other projects. There will be short, as I say, responsive or reflective work due almost every day before class. And so these sometimes will be guided, like I want you to read this and then write something about it. And other times they will be more generic, like a set of options that you can choose from. Nothing's due this coming Wednesday, other than introduce yourself in Discord and complete the survey that I'm going to send. But those will be literally just about almost every day of class. These will be informal. I'm not really going to grade them other than to acknowledge that you turned it in, but it's a chance for you to kind of work with the material, and usually I will use those to kind of ask guiding questions that help you find the things that are important about a particular work. So yeah, just that will be a big part of the class in terms of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. In terms of the grading philosophy here, I've come to really like using this minimalist grading scale. So everything I'll give you a grade for is a check plus, or check minus. A check simply means you did it right. A check plus means you did it right, but you went above and beyond and exceeded my expectations in some significant and noteworthy way. And then a check minus means that you did it, but something was missing or incomplete. And so these are ways for me to communicate how you're doing with the class and with the material. And I like the simplicity of it because it takes away the annoyance of having to haggle over points or nitpick over a rubric, and lets me just kind of quickly say, good job, or maybe try again. And that's really what a grade is. That's what a grade should do, right? It should just be able to tell you those things. Okay, so a few policies and expectations here that are kind of different. So let me kind of talk about those, and then I'll leave it to any questions. If you do have any questions, go ahead and type them in Discord, and I'll see those and respond to them in a moment. Certainly make a Discord account if you haven't already. You don't have to make a Twitch account, but you can if you want to. If you have a Twitch account, you can follow me, and then you'll see when I go live. That said, I'm going to be doing this. I have 4 classes this semester, so 2 sections of 2 different courses, but 4. I will be going live 4 times today. You all are the first of 4 lectures that I'm doing today. So you might not want to see all those notifications. That's fine. But anyway, that's in Twitch. But it definitely definitely sign up for our Discord thing. I will use Canvas announcements for things that are important. I'll also use @everyone messages in Discord sometimes. So keep an eye on those things. Make sure that you have your notifications set in Canvas so that you will receive announcements and see them. Often it will be very important. Attendance and participation. So I'm not really going to take attendance. It's just really, attendance. What does attendance even mean in this kind of class? But I do want you to be here, and I want to see that you're involved every day. The daily homework is kind of a way to get a sense and make sure that you're staying connected with the class. The other things that I will do is like ask you to say hi whenever you sign on to Discord during a live stream, just to kind of confirm that you're out there, and then that also kind of creates a record that I can look back on later and say like, oh yeah, you were online most of the time, so during the lectures. And so that's something that I will ask you to do. But let's see. Yeah, I actually need to delete that paragraph. This paragraph no longer applies. I'll do it later. But that's let's just disregard that. Don't worry about it. Okay, technology in a class. Obviously, you do need technology for this class. In fact, you're using it right now to watch me talk. And you're welcome to use other things, of course. Just make sure you're not distracting other people when we come to the in-person classes. Also, be judicious about how you manage your own attention, I suppose. I would just recommend, don't try to multitask, I suppose. It might be a suggestion. In terms of communication, you also treat me with respect and each other with respect. That's something that hopefully I don't have to explain, but if anyone is violating or being rude or abusive or harassing someone else in the class, I will ask you to leave. I can mute you in the Discord server so that you can't talk to people. I have those kinds of powers, and I will use them if I need to. I have not ever needed to do that kind of thing, actually, but I reserve the right to. Okay, so content warning. Some of these things will be disturbing, maybe, or could be. It's sometimes hard to predict what people are going to react to or how they're going to react to things, but I'll try to give you a heads up if I know about something ahead of time. Sometimes an interesting thing about electronic literature is there might be aspects of a particular text that you're the only person who ever sees it. Because there are so many possible variations of a particular text, you might never get to a particular passage that someone else might. And so it's kind of hard to predict people's responses to texts that are so flexible and malleable. Like in 12 Blue, for example, there are several kind of traumatic events, but if you don't get to them, you won't experience them, and you wouldn't be disturbed by them. So it's kind of hard to say, but I'll give you a heads up about things when I know about them. Sometimes I may not. Like sometimes it might be works that, like, I've never encountered that, so I don't know that it's in there. Or I will probably certainly assign you all works that are that I don't know very well or I haven't encountered before, and we can experience them together for the first time. So you never know. Status of student work. Discord is a closed system, so it's just people in the class. So if you suspect somebody in our Discord server is not actually in the class, then let me know. But I will, as part of the survey, I'm going to ask you to share your Discord nickname so I can kind of verify who is who. And if it seems like someone's not supposed to be there, I will try to figure out what's going on. But it's rarely a problem, but just that's the idea, that's meant to be in there. Some of the things I will ask you to do could end up being public, but you always have a choice about how to make things public and whether to make them public, and we'll talk about those choices when that's an option. Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention in terms of recording, this is the other thing, everything else is kind of boilerplate, but the recording policy, I'm recording this anyway, so you're welcome to also if you want to. Just the only thing that I will ask you not to record on your own is the Zoom conferences. We'll do one Wednesday and maybe others later. Those are recorded, but they're recorded and hosted inside of Canvas, so it's meant just for people in the class. It's not meant for public consumption. This is going out on Twitch and will be on YouTube, so it is public. So what I'm doing, I don't mind being public, and if you chat in the live stream chat channel, it's going to appear above me. Also, that'll be public, but that's it. Like, I don't want to put your content on my live stream without your permission, or even your identity on my live stream without your permission. So that's something I'm going to be careful about. But in a Zoom conference, of course, we'll just be talking to each other. So that kind of thing, I don't want that to be public, right? Because that's not the assumption that people make when they talk in that kind of space. All right, so COVID policy, this will be applying for when and if we are in person starting next week. But this is the standard boilerplate thing, MMDC. All right, so it is 11, so I do want to wrap this up. Are there any questions, anything I can answer, anything I can help you with as far as figuring out this class? Remember, your homework is to join Discord if you haven't already. In Discord, introduce yourself if you haven't already, and I will send you a survey link later today. And so do that. Otherwise, it'll be a Zoom conference on Wednesday. So everybody okay? Should I play some outro music? I always like doing that intro with the, I'll turn it down a little bit while I'm talking. I like doing the intro music, like I call it a lobby scene, as I'm like getting ready, and it gives people a chance to be online and check their connections and stuff. But maybe I should do an outro too. Cool. So I see a few people typing, so I'll let you type your thought in case you're asking a question. Otherwise, I'll be wrapping it up soon, and I'll see you hopefully on Wednesday in Zoom. All right. Well, let's see. Looks like Jay Probst is typing something. It looks like people are just typing their farewells for the day. All right, cool. Right. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you later. Bye.